Coming up on Network Africa, African leaders pay tribute to Britain's Prince Philip as he dies at the age of 99. Citizens in Djibouti vote for a new president. Plus, the UN top official, David Shearer, warns that there is still much more to be done in South Sudan as the peace process remains fragile. Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin with news of the passing of UK's Prince Philip. Tributes by African leaders have begun pouring in for the late monarch after Buckingham Palace announced his death. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa sent his deepest condolences to the people of the United Kingdom. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan also sent her country's most profound condolences to the Queen, the royal family, and the people of the United Kingdom. In February, Prince Philip was admitted to the King Edward's Hospital in central London after feeling unwell. He later underwent a successful procedure for a pre-existing heart condition and returned home a month later.
This, and above all, for his steadfast support for Her Majesty the Queen, not just as her consort, by her side every day of her reign, but as her husband, her strength and stay of more than 70 years. It is to Her Majesty and her family that our nation's thoughts must turn today, because they have lost not just a much-loved and highly respected public figure, but a devoted husband and a proud and loving father, grandfather, and in recent years, great-grandfather. So we mourn today with Her Majesty the Queen. We offer our condolences to her and to all her family. And we give thanks as a nation and a kingdom for the extraordinary life and work of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson there. As a royal consort for 7 decades, Prince Philip has widely been acknowledged as a huge support for Queen Elizabeth. During the 70 years he spent carrying out royal duties, which he only stepped back from in 2017 at the age of 95, Prince Philip accompanied the Queen around the world on Commonwealth tours and state visits, as well as carrying out more than 22,000 solo engagements. He visited 143 countries in an official capacity and was involved with more than 780 organizations. Here's more on his life and times.
Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, as he was officially known, had been by his wife's side, Queen Elizabeth, throughout her 69-year reign, the longest in British history. During that time, he earned a reputation for a tough, no-nonsense attitude and a propensity for occasional gaffes. A Greece prince, he was born on June 21, 1921, although his family were exiled from the country while he was an infant. A member of the Greek and Danish royal families, he joined the British Royal Navy in 1939, aged 18, after being educated in France, Germany, and the UK. After marrying Elizabeth in 1947, he went on to play a key role in modernizing the monarchy in the post-World War II period. He pushed for the Queen's coronation in 1953 to be televised live, and behind the scenes removed outdated behavior in the palace he regarded as stuffy. He was the first royal to do a TV interview. While often criticized for his demeanor and for remarks that caused offense, those close to the family say he brought wit, impatient intelligence, and unflagging energy to the monarchy. The former naval officer admitted he found it hard to give up the military career he loved and to take on the job as the monarch's consort, for which there was no clear-cut constitutional role.
How are you, sir?
In private, the prince was regarded as the unquestioned head of his family, but protocol obliged the man dubbed the second handshake to spend his public life literally one step behind his wife. After completing more than 22,000 solo appearances, Philip retired from public life in August 2017, although after that he occasionally appeared at official engagements. His last appearance was last July at a military ceremony at Windsor Castle. Prince Philip spent 4 weeks in hospital earlier this year for treatments for an infection to have a heart procedure, but returned to Windsor in early March. The Queen, who is 94 years old, came to the throne in 1952, and the couple, who were third cousins, married at Westminster Abbey on November 20th, 1947. They had 4 children: Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, Princess Anne, and Princes Andrew and Edward.
To other stories now, citizens in Djibouti are voting in the general election where President Ismail Omar Guelleh is seeking a 5th term in office. More than 200,000 voters are expected to cast their ballots before polls close at 7 p.m. local time. According to election observers on ground from the Arab League mission, everything is going on well. President Guelleh has led the country for 22 years and is projected to win in a landslide, especially because all major opposition parties have boycotted the election, terming it as a sham. President Guelleh's sole competitor is a little-known former army officer turned businessman, Zakaria Ismail Farah. The strategic tiny nation in the Horn of Africa has a population of less than 1 million people and hosts several military bases for world powers, including US and China. Chad's President Idrissi Deby is poised to extend his 3-decade rule in the country, even as citizens head to the polls on Sunday, April 11th. Opposition leaders have called on their supporters to boycott the polls and make the country, quote, ungovernable, as Deby's decision to seek a 6th term led to protests and clashes with security forces. 68-year-old Deby is one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, having seized power in 1990 in an armed rebellion. He pushed through a new constitution in 2018 that could allow him to stay in power until 2033, even as it reinstated term limits. Botswana has adjusted its age demographic for those eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. The Health Ministry says only those aged over 75 will be allowed to take the jab because few doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines are remaining. Health Ministry Director Malibogo Kebaibonye says that young people were advantaged because of online booking, but now priority will be on the elderly. Botswana has vaccinated 13,690 people, and only 24 of those reported side effects. The country received 24,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine on the 31st of March, the first batch of 100,000 doses expected through the COVAX Global Vaccine Initiative. Leaders of the Southern African Development Community SADC have decided to deploy a technical mission to Mozambique following the insurgency and acts of terror recorded in the Cabo Delgado region of the country. The double troika heads of state on Thursday in Maputo said the acts of terrorism perpetrated against innocent citizens in Cabo Delgado, Mozambique, could not be allowed to continue without a proportionate regional response. Thousands have been killed and tens of thousands displaced since the conflict began in 2017. However, it's not clear what action the region will take, but the deployed technical mission will report back to the heads of state by the 29th of April. Our South Africa Bureau Chief spoke to Mr. Martin Ewi, a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies in Pretoria, on what to make of the outcome of the meeting. We do apologize, we do not have that interview yet, but moving on, the UN Refugee Agency says thousands of people displaced by attacks in Mozambique's Palma are struggling with trauma and devastating loss. Attacks forced at least 16,000 people to flee, with thousands more reported to be trapped in the coastal town following attacks by insurgents. UNHCR says it is putting in place measures to receive more arrivals in the coming days, and staff are reaching areas outside Pemba to assist newly displaced people.
Some also arrived walking. The sentiment is transversal to everyone I've been speaking with. They are highly traumatized. These are people that are exhausted. They arrived by many means. Most of them arrived in a boat a few days ago, but some also arrived walking. The sentiment is transversal to everyone I've been speaking with. They are highly traumatized by what they have seen, by what they have experienced, seeing their families, their friends being killed, seeing their houses being completely destroyed.
UN top official in South Sudan, David Shearer, is warning that there is still much to be done in the country as the peace process remains fragile. Speaking a day before leaving his role as the special representative of the UN Secretary General for South Sudan and the head of the UN peacekeeping mission in the country, Mr. Shearer reflected on some of the highlights of his 4 years in charge, mentioning the ceasefire, the 2018 revitalized peace agreement, and the formation of a transitional government. He conceded, however, that there is a long way to go in achieving sustainable peace in the country.
The peace process remains fragile and there is still much to be done, including picking up the pace on constitution making, transitional justice and economic reform. And there are also courageous decisions that need to be made to unify the soldiers of the different parties. We are fully committed to continuing to secure durable peace by working closely with all political parties across regional and international boundaries. As I said when I came to South Sudan, our success will be measured by the downsizing of our presence. You are a tough, resilient, and remarkably patient lot of people. I'm inspired by your seemingly endless hope as you fight against huge odds to achieve the much brighter future you deserve. And I'll miss this young country, and I wish you well from the bottom of my heart.
Still to come on Network Africa. Our Africa Tech segment meets with a young, passionate developer, Okwemifo Disu, who is contributing to open source projects. Give you more details after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. We continue with an earlier story bordering on the insurgency in Mozambique. On Thursday in Maputo, leaders of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, decided to deploy a technical mission to the country because of the insurgency and acts of terror recorded in the Cabo Delgado region. Well, our South Africa Bureau Chief spoke to Mr. Martin Ewi, who's a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies in Pretoria, on what to make of the outcome of the meeting.
First, we all focused on the double troika, as we were told, with so much hope. Let's look at the wording of the outcome, the communique. What do you make of it? It seems quite on the side of more cautious than being decisive. Were you surprised?
Not at all. It's deliberately vague, and I think it's meant to be like that. It's also given the nature of the compromise that was reached, the fact that it was a very dicey issue that, I don't think that they achieved the full compromise that they were expecting. Say, for example, the Mozambican government coming with accepting, to receive a SADC force. So in the absence of that, I think the measure that it took was to still buy time and to give also Mozambique time to react favorably, probably by the 28th or 29th of this month.
All right. We've seen Mozambique play the sovereignty card and some sort of denial. It's been about 4 years now, and a lot of damage, a lot of lives have been lost, so many displaced. We're seeing people being beheaded, including children, and over 11,000 displaced. At what point can the neighbors or the bodies, AU, SADC, force the country to drop the sovereignty card?
The humanitarian impact of the crisis so far is so heavy. The 11,000 you are referring to is just since the attack on Palma. But if you want to look at it since 2017, over 700,000 people have been displaced all over the country. So this is a very serious crisis, and we cannot allow it to continue. So I believe that the African Union and the SADC, the Southern African Development Community, they are also baffled by the fact that Mozambique, as you say, is using the sovereignty card to keep them at bay. But to what extent will this continue? I think that we are already seeing that SADC is running out of patience, because that's why the word deployment was deliberate, because they could have just said a technical mission. They could have said a technical mission rather than a technical deployment. So the terms were clearly choosing to also send a signal that this is what they want to do. They want to deploy. There will be people on the ground. But for the moment, I think the consensus is on having a technical team that could go in there, assess the situation, map out a possible intervention or a possible role for the SADC to play. I think it is significant progress based, given the fact that we've gone for going through 4 years without SADC really taking a strong decision on the issue. And this is really a turnaround. This is really a turning point. So from here, we can only see greater SADC involvement in the situation in Cabo Delgado.
Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. A 15-year-old passionate developer, Okwemikwo Disu, has continued to make waves in the technology space by contributing to open source projects. The multi-talented young chap, who was selected as an IBM champion for developers in 2020, says he is building Africa's first movie subscription website. Okwemikwo Disu is a 15-year-old computer programmer, Cloudinary media developer, developer advocate, and a keynote speaker. He is passionate about technology and wants to make the web and JavaScript more accessible to everyone, especially developers.
I love seeing things created by Africans every day. I love seeing things being introduced every day by people in tech. I just love seeing companies out there. And well, I see a lot of people making waves in tech, and I want to be this person who creates something on my own. Then I want to create something from scratch. I just made a tweet about
Okwemikpo is still a student, but he says securing his footing in both his education and tech career is sometimes a challenge.
Balancing work and school, I think it's very, very tough for me, basically because our lifestyle as developers, I think it's very, very hard and very hard to understand. Very hard to understand because whenever I come back from school, I go to code and focus on other things that are different from what's happening in my educational life. Then whenever it's time for exams, I give more attention to my education.
Okwemikpo is a developer who contributes to open source projects and is passionate about what he does. He runs a YouTube channel, Okwemikpo's Thoughts, where he makes coding tutorials and gives tech talks.
I'm currently working on Africa's first movie subscription website. It's just something like Netflix for Africa. And it's just, it's this project where you can subscribe every month. It's for Africa producers and the rest, but just something for Africa to the world.
As a young person trying to make his own mark in the world, Okwemikpo says he has his own trials, but he loves technology and so he is relentless.
Internet is one challenge I face every day, and also energy or power supply is one of the challenges also, because we don't have good power supply in Nigeria. We don't have good internet connections and sort of that. Even internet here is too expensive in Nigeria. So I make new friends who can help me out with challenges like this. Because there's something we call imposter syndrome. We have different challenges we face as young developers. Like myself, putting myself out there is something that has really helped me with overcoming underestimation and sort of that.
Since he was 10, he had always loved multinational technology company IBM, International Business Machines Corporation, and aspires to be an IBMer. He started using the technologies at the same age, hoping that one day his aspirations will become a reality. Well, that came true in 2019. The teenager was nominated to be a 2020 IBM Champion for Developers. In January 2020, he was selected with 603 others and has since then been a contributor to the IBM community. And as we end the program today, Egyptian archaeologists have made a stunning discovery of a lost city that dates back more than 3,400 years to the time of the pharaohs. The find has been called one of the most important since the unearthing of the tomb of Tutankhamun. The archaeologists were searching for a temple in the desert sands near the city of Luxor, and then they began finding something else. The walls of houses stretching away in all directions. There were rooms filled with items that ancient Egyptians used in everyday life. Rings and colored pottery bore the seal of one of the country's most powerful pharaohs. In one neighborhood, a bakery was found, and evidence of food preparation for many people. Experts say this discovery is something really substantial in the history of Egyptian archaeology. The well-preserved city has been described as nothing less than an Egyptian Pompeii. Well, that is just fascinating. That's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke. Have a lovely weekend.